Joe Ingram, you gotta love it. You guys now have something new from Joe. So Joe's one of our. I don't know if you remember. Joe comes in here and goes on the radio program, and he is one of the big hecklers out there.
Nice.
So
is he heckling us?
He says, "I don't know, something about you guys being Chippendales." I don't know about this. So
at this stage of life, I'll take either.
Okay. Wow,
it's like it's like a Chippendale show for his ears. Oh. I don't know about your ears, Joe. So we're not going to even go there at all. So
is that the Chippendales, or is he calling us Chip and Dale?
Could be either one.
It could be either one. You know.
So I don't even know where to start. We threw out there some ideas about the national ideas on what's going on in real estate, and I'm a big believer that, you can go in with all this national stuff, but it doesn't tell you anything until you get really granular, get really local. So
I think you got to go back to your basics, Ron, and that's keep it simple. And simple isn't the national headlines.
Okay.
It's simple as what's going on in your neighborhood, your backyard, and what is your intention. If your intention is to sell your house and move out of California, there are some pretty good bargains, and you're going to do well on selling your house. If you're looking to sell your house and move up, there's a program for that. But it's all neighborhood by neighborhood. I mean, people get distracted by the news and the headline.
Why do you want to move up?
It's a great time to move up.
Why?
Because you might be in a 3-bedroom and you need a 5-bedroom.
Okay. So you got to. So my
not just. I'm not saying like do you want to move from Orange to Newport Beach because you want to be on the water or something. No, I'm just simply saying for the use of your family, that let's say you're in a smaller 1,300 square foot 3-bedroom and there's a 2,200 square foot 4-bedroom. You want that room to grow. It's a great time to do it. Everybody thinks that it's the real estate market's collapsed. It's like, no, it's softened. Of course, that's a given, but at the same time, it just means there's less people in the way. There's not 17 offers. You're not kicking.
We can wait till the end of the year, and there will be. Most likely.
Maybe. We'll see. I mean, I haven't figured out. I mean, it's like the stock market. Everybody keeps complaining about the stock market. All I see is 33,000, 32,000, 34,000. I mean, it's staying right in a range, but they make news out of it every day.
Kind of feels like 7 or 8 hours of TV time on the cable channels.
Yeah, I mean,
nice. You got to find some news. So let's talk local, because we are sitting in the beautiful city of Orange, California right now. So median list price $998,900. New listings are actually coming on the market at $999. Pretty close, right?
Yep.
Price per square foot $567 a square foot. Pretty flat there. Average days on the market is 68. Price decreases 36%. So Orange is obviously much smarter than Anaheim. Relisted are 5%. Okay. And now here's one that seems like an anomaly to me. Now, $999 is the list price. Median rent for the city of Orange, single family residence, $39.95.
That's up.
It's up.
I got a whiff of it the other day. Talking to some investors, and they actually had some people that moved out. They obviously were going somewhere where they had something to do. I know a lot of the renters I've ever talked to, they don't want to make a move right now because they're worried they won't be able to make a move to something. It's not like they're going to be able to move down, I mean, in terms of amount of money, but things are still pushing up. There's pressure on the up because there are very few rentals. And in LA,
why would you want to be a landlord in LA?
You don't want to be a landlord in LA. So landlords are looking to get out of LA. So that's putting pressure on other areas.
They're going to put pressure on pricing in Los Angeles?
Yeah. Well, it's going to put downward pressure on it.
That's what I would think.
I mean, yeah. But it's going to put upward pressure.
Investors are going to leave.
It's going to put upward pressure on the surrounding counties because those investors are going to want to get out of there and move over to I mean, that's all that's accomplishing. It's not saving anybody a lot of money on the rents. What would really help the rents is if you would let the landlords let it float and let them build, and they just barely let.
You're a builder, or were.
Were.
So would you want to build in Los Angeles County?
Oh, I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't even go in there today. For a rental perspective, maybe.
I understand this, but what? Let's for the audience's sake. Why?
Rent control.
Rent
Number
control.
one reason, rent control. You're going to, you've got to go through the hoops. You got to figure out what the formula is. So you got to balance it. I'm not sure if you could build something today and at a profit with that under that program.
And the other
Yeah.
side of it obviously becomes that if somebody doesn't want to pay you, you can't get rid of them.
Well, there you go. Like somebody said the other day, there's people that are about a year out and they haven't paid rent. So what are they doing with the money? If they're saving I don't think it's
So our
39.
savings rate is way down, so we know they're not saving.
Yeah. So let's say, I don't know what the average rent in LA is across the board, but you got to figure it's around 3,000 probably, because there's a high and a low. But at the same time, if they're not paying rent, and I don't know how the landlord's affording the building, I really don't understand why would anybody want to build. But there are some people. I mean, there are projects going on in LA. There are, but
Now let me ask you this other part of it, because before when you were chatting, and the reason I asked you why would somebody want to move up, and it's because of a catalyst,
Yeah.
right? They got married, they have more kids, they've got to bring grandma and grandpa into the house, an extended family house. Those are all catalysts. I don't think anybody really wants to go from a 4-bedroom to a 4-bedroom and a 3% mortgage to a 6% mortgage just for fun.
Well, they don't get up in the morning and say, "Wow, what a good idea! Let's do this."
Right.
And my local realtor needs a commission or something.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that says that either. But if you want to send it,
there's always a catalyst behind something. As Blake, I think, what was the number for the amount of people with zero debt, and the amount of real estate value in Orange County with zero debt?
Well, just in the 8 cities around our office, the last time we surveyed it, there was over $420 billion worth of equity sitting in real estate.
So those people are sitting, they're not, I mean, if it fluctuates 5%, 10%, and they're looking to maybe get a retirement home or to a retirement community, let's say they're going to move to Sun City, Arizona. I don't know what the price is or anything, but they're going to do very well selling their property in California, and they're going to have a lot of cash available to buy something in a more moderate priced area. So they have a motivation. That's a catalyst, like you said.
sure.
And then, of course, as you said, families moving in. There's still some tech industries, and some industries are hiring. There's still a lot of job creation going on here in California.
Well,
It's not. I mean, it's not just move where you want and be on a computer. There are people.
So people are having to go back to having to go back to work.
Right.
Speaking of going back to work, we'll continue our conversation, chatting with Blake Vartanian and Jim Norton, both from Realty Pro 100. And if you're fortunate enough, and I know you are not, if you are fortunate enough to be in here with us during the commercials, sometimes we have some interesting chats, and Blake came up with a very sound concept of one of his metrics. Now, Blake's been doing this I think he was involved in the Louisiana Purchase, so it does go back a day or two.
Yeah, I showed property to Napoleon Bonaparte myself in 1803.
So
He got a good commission on that deal.
Yeah, he goes way
He
back.
was so impressed with my ability.
Yeah.
He went out and that was his Waterloo.
There we go. So now we don't want to get too much into history here, but when you've been doing this a long time, you have metrics that you use that are really not the normal metrics. They're not things that anybody ever talks about, but they're called boots on the ground. They're hard knock metrics. So explain that one that you were talking about during the break, Blake.
Well, open house activity is oftentimes the precursor for new sales, new listings that could
And houses sell at open houses?
Yes, they do actually.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes you can write the offer right there on the counter if the people are, ready, and even if they're with their own agent, and they want to make an offer, I encourage them to make an offer. But I think because the year started off with so much precipitation and weekends ruined.
I should have
asked Tim
said
about
rain. The periodic
I
table.
should have said rain.
Jim, I was
Yeah.
putting you on.
Is that too many
Is he
syllables?
back to that table thing again? Are we having lunch?
Well, I want to be a weather person deep down inside. But the forecast method is, when open house activity is slow just before the spring market, it has tended to lead to a very slow spring market. And so I would say, like the spring of 2019, I knew in January and February that the spring market was in trouble because of what was being reported to us through the agents who were holding the open houses.
Okay.
And so this past weekend, I had reports from multiple people in different geographic areas about the unbelievable surge they had in open house activity, where they were expecting maybe 15 or 20 groups, and they were getting 30 and 40 groups through
Wow.
on a Saturday and or a Sunday. And so I also, there's a house in my own neighborhood that, listed with a competitor, which is fine. People make their choices.
They're allowed
But-
to make a mistake,
Yeah.
right, Blake?
Well, hey,
Got
I
one in my
respect
neighborhood, too.
the fact that they used our, they came to me, asked me for the contractors, used our, got their discounts and did what they wanted to do. And we thought they were just fixing up their house because it needed it. And so we just had casual conversation around that. Next thing they're reporting to the neighbors, but not to us, that they're moving to Nashville, Tennessee. And so, I respect their choice, and I want to remain neighborly because it's important to have a good, I love the concept of a neighborhood. That's why I live in the suburbs.
Sure.
If I didn't, I'd live somewhere, where I had
Some
10
high
acres.
rise.
Yeah, or somewhere like that. In looking at the open house activity, the parking was unbelievably compromised in our neighborhood, where there's usually ample parking, and people were even parking across, the front of our
I mean,
driveway.
they weren't watching the
We had
Pro
to
Bowl,
move-
though.
No, I know flag football is
Maybe
really
that's why it was
exciting.
crowded. There was nothing to
Maybe when you're in
watch.
7th or 8th grade, you're interested in flag football, but I don't know. If somebody watched it, I hope you enjoyed it,
Did
but it
anybody
wasn't
watch
my
it?
thing. I couldn't watch it.
I don't know. The only thing I don't think anybody watched that. And I think
Yeah.
the only thing that was less exciting than the football game was probably the Grammys, because they've got I think their lowest viewing ever. So,
Yeah.
oh, that's a different story.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, that's a great concept, Blake. So you can actually get a idea of activity and interest and motivations, right?
Well,
Because of with how many people are showing up to these open houses.
Well, when you see cars lined up and down the street to purchase a $1.1 million house in a standard tract home, neighborhood in Yorba Linda, the home that probably originally sold for $41,000 or $42,000 back when it was first
Yeah,
built
we're
in
going back to the
72.
Louisiana Purchase.
No,
so
no,
we're-
but I'm just saying is,
No,
when
he's
you look,
right, it
when you
did.
when you think about what you're buying. So, I oftentimes I've said this before on the show. I like to say we just sold another $350,000 house. Unfortunately, the client had to pay $1.2 million to get it, because anywhere else in the country that house would have sold for $350,000 or $400,000. But because of the Southern California premium, that's what we end up having to pay.
So what I want to find out from you, though, Blake, is, do you know what the list price of that property is?
$1,099,000.
$1,099,000. Okay,
Mhm.
so when we look, and the reason I'm asking the question is because it's not like it's something that's
It's not a giveaway.
No,
It's actually priced at the high end of the range for the
so
neighborhood.
median home prices for Yorba Linda is $1,067,000,
Mhm.
and if you look at it, the new listings are $1,499,000. So, it's not at the high end, but it's also, and Yorba Linda's got a very good. Yorba Linda's in what they call a strong sellers market based on a lot of different analytics. So it's it's one of the strong ones right there. So again, it's not something that's outrageous.
Well, and all of the high schools in Placentia, Yorba Linda enjoy a good reputation, right? There was a time when, as a graduate of Valencia, maybe we didn't. but Valencia has become, it's interesting, how academically the school has advanced from when, a guy like me could be a high honor student. And I thought, wow, if I'm getting that high honor, what are the other kids doing?
You gotta wonder. You're listening to Ron. We are continuing our conversation. We've got Blake Vartanian and Jim Norton in the house, Realty Pro 100, chatting about real estate, chatting about. I love the idea of thinking about these catalysts, and I think that's the reason. And we'll throw this off to the guys and get their take on it as well. Is interest rates have doubled since last year. Okay, we understand that they're coming back down. I told you May 10th we'll start seeing when they'll really start dropping dramatically. So that circle on your calendar. And as I've shared with you before, just like every person in radio or in TV, I've got it circled on the calendar. I noted when we said this the very first time, and on May 10th, if we see the numbers start dropping, I will be playing that. Josh will cut the clip out. If we don't, I'll bring Jim back in and we'll start talking about something different. It's just the way it works in the media. But the bottom line is there's ways that there's creative ways. And our thesis today, or our headline today, is how experts can help close the gap in today's home ownership rate. And part of that has to do with assembling a team. And the team, and Blake kind of alluded to it in the last segment when, just at the asking, he was able to hand a homeowner, a plumber and a drywaller or a painter or a
Painters.
gardener or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a professional understands. If you're talking to somebody who just does this part-time, spare time, and they're really just trying to cut out a commission and not really know what they're doing, you're not going to get that education. And your neighbors generally, unless you're neighbors with Blake, they generally don't know these things, right? So I was at a real estate office yesterday, and just by putting minds together, we were able to come up with a solution. And Blake or Jim, you guys, either one of you can take this. What's the value? We were able to put together a solution. This family could go and get a house that they needed just because they needed something bigger. And they were able to make a non-contingent offer versus a contingent offer.
Mm-hmm.
Which is stronger?
Non-contingent.
Okay, explain.
Well, a contingent means that you have outside influence occurring in the process. So
Something else has to happen. in order
Mostly,
for it
let's
to
cut
be
to the chase of in real estate. A contingent offer is contingent on you selling your house so that
Selling
you
the departed
generate the
property.
money to buy the next property. The problem is that if you don't have yours under contract, it's an open-ended contingency. Seller's going to go, well, I'm not going to take it off the market. They're going to leave it up on
Right.
the market, and they're going to go that way. But non-contingent means that you've got the cash, you're ready to do the down, you're ready to set up your financing. If you've done where you're going with the team concept, because that's my biggest mantra, is to get people together and then start talking to the different professionals to assist them. And first, you always have to have, as a buyer, you always have to have your financing lined up. It's amazing to me how many people are on Zillow looking at houses, but they don't have a clue on what they've got to spend and what they need to do to get that. You and I had a deal where we were talking about this in Placentia. They had an Anaheim condo. They thought they needed to sell it in order to do it. We came up with a scenario where they could keep it as a rental and buy the other, finance the new house, and it would all work out. Plus, they picked up more valuation of real estate,
bigger portfolio.
in their portfolio. And I think they looked at us and went, it was just too much to understand. How could it be so simple? How could that be not true? And it's like, that's fine. But people's perceptions are, you have to show them how that works. But it can be done. It can be done. It can be done.
It's amazing what happens when you put together a good team of
Yeah.
people who are, I hate to use the word experts, because what ends up happening whenever you say somebody's an expert, the next person wants to shoot them down.
Right. No,
Right. So people that are experienced.
you have experience in
knows what
doing
they're
that.
doing.
Right. And you know what the numbers are doing, and you're checking all the boxes. You're making sure that there's no hidden surprises, let's just call it that. But it can be done so easily. I don't know, I don't understand why people are not pulling the equity on their house and then buying another house and keeping that as a rental. It's like, just sit down for a minute and you can sketch out how to do that.
And there's something, in addition to the loan program that I just mentioned, that, it's basically a down payment assistance that, lets you buy with no money down. Now, even if you're over 55, you can pull your money out of your property using a reverse mortgage, a second mortgage. So that's a new one, a second mortgage reverse. So keep that 3% first or 2.5% first that you have, and take money out. And as long as you keep that as your primary residence, call Jim and buy another rental property.
Exactly. And then I think you always talk about your household interest rate. That's what you're talking about right there, because you're blending that 3% with a 6%. What is the blend going to come out to be?
Sure.
But on the same side of that argument, what do you gain you gain a better house that fits your needs more, you gain a rental, and you've increased your net worth because of the fact that you now have two properties in California. First of all,
So let's talk about that, Jim.
Yeah.
The property, just using for example the numbers that you and I worked on a couple months ago. I guess it was last year.
it was
So,
last year.
What was the value, just roughly, of the departing property?
Of the buyer,
Right.
their value I think was $750. It's around $750.
Okay, so let's just say 750. And
All right.
what was the value of the acquisition property?
$890.
890. I'm going to say 850 just because then the math is easy.
Okay, that's fine.
Right. So that's is that 1.6 million? Right. Is that right? I think that's right. At 1.6 million. Now let's just look at this and say in Orange County, California, 63-year average, 5.37% appreciation, 10-year average, 6.52, 5-year average, 7.33. And the 1-year forecast is 4.16. And the 5-year forecast is about 6% over each year for the next 5 years. So can we just call that 5%?
Yep.
Is that $80,000 a year in appreciation?
Yes.
Right? $80,000 a year in appreciation. And how much are you putting into your 401k and your IRA? Probably not $80,000 a year. And it's probably not compounding.
You do, and this is where I think people get hung up on this, is that it just doesn't stop there. You still have to have a plan down the road. I mean, if you're young, you're going to have that growth for 10, 20 years. So it's going to build up. But what are you going to do? How are you going to do that on the road? Because we have that always at the end of the road is that thing called capital gains.
Not really.
Well, that's why I'm saying if you have a
run the
plan,
clock
it's
out
not.
on that too.
If you have a plan, you can deal with that.
We can talk to our
Can I
friend. In
introduce
fact,
you-
that's a
can
whole
I
nother
introduce
show.
you to Ron and Todd?
right. I think my friend Todd Halterman is
And
going to be
Todd
on the show
Halterman,
on.
there's a great. I mean, he does a great show.
I
and
think
he
he's
has
here on
great
Wednesday. He'll be
Yeah.
on the program
Nice.
Wednesday or
Todd,
Thursday this week.
we
Todd will be here.
should actually
Nice.
we should do is bring Todd in on one of these conversations one time because it'll show you the whole map of where you can go. Because people say like, okay, well, do I sell this? And then my brother-in-law said I have to pay taxes on all that, and I really don't get the income. Or if I pay off the house and I'm getting cash flow completely, all that equity sitting there, just doing nothing.
Keep taking the equity out every 5 years. If you pull all your equity out, leave 25% behind, but pull all your equity out every 5 years and reinvest it. Now, when you pull equity out of a property that you continue to own, I'm not a tax person. I am not giving tax advice. Alton Moore was here last week. He gives tax advice. And he would probably tell you, and I'm not going to put words in his mouth, that there's no taxable event when you borrow money against property. So pull the money out and buy more property.
Buy more property.
Right? I mean, every time you sell, think about this. If I own Apple stock today, in order for me to access that money, I know I can go on margin and there's loans against it. For the most part, I've got to sell it in order to access the money.
Right.
When I sell it, that's a taxable event.
It's a taxable event.
I found that most people in their first conversation around this, they see it as very complicated. It's not that it's complicated, it's that it's complex. So you have to follow the steps. And when you have the professionals around you who can guide you through the process, it's very easy to obtain additional wealth through real estate because of the historical nature of the way real estate performs. So you can go back into specific periods in time and say, well, there's this time over here where it didn't. But the neat thing about the numbers you're using is that you're averaging the real numbers over a period of time, which cannot be disputed.
Right. It's a long period of time. And the other thing that we didn't even talk about is we talked about $80,000 in appreciation. Not guaranteed. I'm not saying it's going to happen perfectly. There'll be years that maybe it's more, maybe it's less. Who knows? But I'm talking about long periods of time, and we didn't even talk about leverage. And if you want more information on this, just stay tuned. I'm going to actually even be doing some wealth workshops. We've got that on our calendar for this year. Every quarter, we're going to be doing some wealth workshops. We'll be inviting a lot of folks to come to these things. I'm actually working right now on putting together a senior symposium. So we're going to talk about how do you get more out of your Social Security? When's the right time to start taking Social Security? Blake and Jim are already on there, but that's a whole different story. But
I'm deferring it.
What is deferred
Yeah,
Social
right,
Security mean?
exactly.
We're going to talk about all that with experts. So we're going to have that workshops coming up as well. So make sure you stay tuned to Ron Siegel Radio. And as